At Five Star Bank, community is at the heart of what we do. Every day we strive to have thoughtful solutions for our customers and help our communities prosper. Honest dialogue about the issues affecting the region is vitally important to that prosperity. We are proud to be part of the conversation and hope you'll join in.
A key mission of our K-12 public education system is to prepare our children for the jobs of tomorrow. Primary education in California has been under siege for years. With the economy struggling to recover, many look to California's public education system to create the workforce and the leadership of the future. The success of public education will drive much of California's future in the 21st century global marketplace. Joining us today to discuss the state of K-12 education and innovations that are making a difference in student achievement are Jonathan Raymond, Superintendent of Sacramento City Unified School District, and Dr. Jim Lanich, President of the California Business for Education Excellence. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Hi, Scott.
Thank you.
So, with so much conflicting information that swirls around us on a day-by-day basis on education, give us a reality check from your vantage points as to what is the state of higher or of K-12 education today. Jim?
There are schools that need help. There are kids that are trapped in situations where they're not learning what they should be learning when they should be learning it. And there's the other end of the spectrum where there are schools that are succeeding with kids who have been historically dismissed, and they're getting them prepared to be successful in high school and right into college.
And from a local perspective, how do you see the world?
Tremendous challenges, but also great opportunities. We think that there is growing support now for funding education in California, which is much needed after a long, deep, dry spell. But with that come tremendous challenges because the cuts have been significant for so long. We've got large class sizes, many fewer adults on our campuses, and programs that are essential to educating children, art and music and athletics, after school, before school activities. These have become luxuries, but they're absolutely essential to educating the whole child here in California.
Now, since the beginning of the recession, it's my understanding that we went from in 2010 being 23rd in the nation in terms of K-12 funding to about 35th. Is that accurate?
Somewhere in there, it all depends upon what research you're reading. There's wide variances.
Let me rephrase. What is it that we've lost in the past few years that's critical for us to restore just to get back to baseline?
I think we've lost the focus on teaching and learning.
Really?
And we have too heavy a focus on the conditions necessary to teach kids because there are schools and school districts and systems and charter management organizations all over the nation that are succeeding with these kids with the current resources that they have. Not that they don't need more resources. Schools, teachers, and school systems need more resources. It's what you do with those resources to get results for those kids that matter.
Now, it's interesting that you mentioned that because there is an organization that speaks directly to the issue of funding that puts out a report every year about the state of funding. And their charge is that inequality of funding is directly tied and is the key barometer linked to student achievement. It would sound from what you're saying that you would disagree with that.
I would disagree because we can show you schools and school systems that are getting less money with better results. Now, I'm not saying that schools need less money. I'm saying that the relationship between funding and academic achievement and getting those kids to where they need to be prepared for the workforce and prepared for college is not as simple as equating it to a funding formula.
And Jonathan, would you agree with that?
Well, I'd say first that your numbers were generous. California is at the bottom of the pile. You know, we've got the largest class sizes, we've got the highest ratio of students to counselors. You know, we have the fewest librarians to students. We've decimated public education here in California. And I think context is important. By average, we're about $5,000 a student. You know, my home state of Massachusetts spends on average about $13,300.
Washington, D.C. spends about $20,000 per student.
That's even higher. I do agree with what Jim is saying, though, that you know, we've had the conversation change on us because we've had a lot of distractions. And we need to get back to that conversation, which is, yes, about teaching and learning, which is why I think that the greatest opportunity we have now is with college and career standards. These Common Core standards are world-class standards, and I think, you know, Jim would even agree that, you know, we need to change the conversation. We need to change.
Explain to us what these Common Core standards are. What does that mean?
It's standards that will truly prepare children to be ready for college and career. And by ready, that means they will not require any
remedial
type of remedial work when they get to college. Right now, about 60% of students when they get to college require some form of remedial classwork. This means that they're ready to go on day one, which is good for the whole system. It also means that they're learning the kinds of skills and competencies that employers are saying are absolutely essential for success in the workplace. This is the new true north that we need to be focusing on.
Okay, then maybe you would agree with a recent commentary by Craig Barrett, the former CEO of Intel, who said something along the lines, and I'm paraphrasing right now, that there's no other system in the world where it is that the purchaser or the ultimate owner of a product, and that's the university system, would accept from the provider of the product, the K through 12 system, a defective product, and that's a harsh way of talking about our children, from the onset that need remediation on coming in. Is that a fair charge?
There's no question we have to be working closer with higher education. There's really good models. We talked a little bit earlier about great things happening down in Long Beach. Here in Sacramento, we're replicating. You know, we're creating what we call the Sacramento Pathway to Success. It's a partnership with the City College and Sacramento State, and it's making sure that we're working together, that their expectations are meeting our expectations, and that we're preparing our children, again, for success at day one.
Jim, tell us a little bit about your program, Educational Results Partnership, and what was the genesis and how is it utilized?
Sure. Well, the business community of California is what the business leaders lead my organization, and they're interested in they have a social justice agenda. They have a civil rights agenda. They have to. Because
the business leaders,
the business leaders do because it equals an economic productivity agenda. Our kids who are in the seats today need certain skills. They need to be able to do certain things at certain times in order to be ready for the workforce after leaving the 12th grade or for college. So our organization, the business leaders couldn't figure out how do you improve this if you don't know what's working and where it's working, what's not working, where is it breaking down. So they asked us to develop a data system called Educational Results Partnership, edresults.org. It's the largest student level data system in the nation today, where we can pinpoint exactly what schools that are high poverty, high minority are excelling, getting their kids to grade level in the core content subjects. So we're able to quickly dispel myths about what's working and what's not working. Without that data roadmap, how could we replicate success if we don't even know where?
That's interesting that you're actually getting to the data. So share with us what things, if you were to name just a handful of things that the data demonstrates makes a difference in those lowest performing schools, what are they?
Sure, well, data's data, and you know, to bring life to it, we go to the places that are, we call them bright spots. So we go to the places that are outperforming expectation for ethnic minority kids, and we talk to the superintendents, we talk to the boards, we talk to the teachers, we talk to the parents, we talk to the custodial staff about what's working in those schools. It's not rocket science. You know, I'm a former teacher for a long time in Los Angeles. It all makes sense. It's just that somehow we stray from it. There's too many inputs and too many competing agendas in this business of educating kids. Number one, the best practice that we find across the nation is a disposition for high expectations of what kids can learn. So it's teaching matters. The achievement gap exists because of the adult practices that exist.
Low expectations. You know, many, many years ago, the former President Bush had made a speech and he talked about the soft bigotry of low expectations. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you're saying that a critical part of the mix is expecting that our children can learn.
It's number one. It's number one. Our children are not broken. They don't need to be fixed. The parents aren't sending us their bad kids and keeping the good kids at home. The kids are our kids. We need to love them, we need to hug them, we need to take care of them, and we need to teach them. They need to be competitive. And unless we expect of ourselves, of the adults in the system, that those kids are capable of what we teach them, teacher expectation, student achievement is tight linkage. Parent is number one, teacher is number two. Those kids only know what they're taught. And if they don't learn it, they haven't been taught it.
Okay, but Jonathan, there is this raging debate that's been going on for years between what I'll call the traditionalists and the reformers. And the reformers say it's all about the teacher, and you lay it on the shoulders of the teachers, and if the teachers do their job, achievements are just a natural outgrowth of that. The traditionalists come from the argument, and I'm setting this up as a bit of a dichotomy here, that if you don't solve the socioeconomic problems around the community that feeds into the school and ultimately to the teacher, it doesn't matter what the teacher does. Where's the common sense reality?
Right. Let me first say to Jim, amen. Amen on that.
Can you tell that he believes in that a little?
And so do I. And you know, we've seen that in our turnaround schools, our priority schools. We made a lot of changes in these schools, some of them small, like cleaning and painting. Mm-hmm. But the one thing we didn't change is the students and coming from those neighborhoods, and they are excelling, and it's extraordinary.
Give us an example.
Well, we look at Fernbacon Middle School. I mean, this was a school that, you know, single-digit children performing at grade level. In the last 2 years, they've scored 4th in the state of California for any middle school in terms of academic growth.
Really?
That's extraordinary. Hiram Johnson High School. They've led the state of California for the last 2 years in terms of a comprehensive high school for growth. And we have examples of that in our other schools. Again, same children, so which is key. Back to your question, this notion of traditionalists versus reformers, look, I think the conversation needs to really shift towards, you know, how do we transform our schools? There's no question we have to invest in our educators. The teacher in the classroom, as Jim pointed out, is absolutely essential. And we need to get them working together, and we need to get them prepared and able to really impart and in some ways step back when it comes to teaching these Common Core standards. They truly are the way that we can transform public education in this country if we're willing to invest in building the capacity of our teachers to work together, to continue to strive towards excellence, and yes, to push our kids really hard. They'll get over the bar as long as we push them.
Well, I want to read to you a quote. So a skeptic would say that we've been here before and we just keep showing up to the same place with the same story and expecting different results, which some call the definition of insanity. A quote, once again from the former chairman of Intel, Mr. Barrett, goes like this. The history of K-12 education reform is disturbing. Starting in 1958 with the publication of Pursuit of Excellence, we've had a constant stream of blue ribbon studies, including A Nation at Risk, Before It's Too Late, like these names, Rising Above the Gathering Storm. It would seem like they're sending a headline, and several National Governors Association studies that have all outlined what's needed to be done to reform and improve K-12 education. If you agree with the premise that we've studied these issues to death, why hasn't the solution already happened?
Because we don't know where we're going. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, as they say. And the studies do map out the state of reform in our schools, but we haven't got the core mission right. Mm-hmm. What do kids need to know? When do they need to know it? What do we do if they didn't learn it? What do we do if they did learn it? And Jonathan's absolutely correct on the importance of the Common Core being successful, because that is a roadmap. And we need to agree that getting kids out of high school and into the workforce in a living wage with a stackable career ladder, or into college on the same pathway that gets them into a living wage occupation, that's not a dead-end occupation, that actually contributes to economic productivity. That's an important mission, and we stray from that. We argue about that. We have various factions that pull on the threads and keep. It's a thread that just never quits, coming out of the garment. We should learn from our economic competitors. They're not arguing the importance of reading, math, literature, liberal arts education in Korea and Singapore and
What are they doing?
Germany. They're teaching those kids. They're in agreement on what schools do and how they should operate. Jonathan cannot be expected to cure the social ills of Sacramento. It's not his job. His job is to educate those kids and stick to that core mission of getting them the tools, the skills, and the knowledge necessary to have a good life and to be able to compete effectively. Period.
Well, I want to ask you a question about, you talk about, if you don't exactly know where you're going, you're going to end up there anyway. One of the arguments that's made is that the very foundation of how school is delivered today in K through 12 has its basis when we were more of an agrarian society, and that if we were designing the school system from the ground up today, we wouldn't design it in quite the way that we have it right now. And without getting too theoretical, what things structurally are the biggest impediments toward achieving the result that you're describing? Jonathan?
I want to add one piece though, Scott,
Sure.
because this is important. And we recently worked with Dr. Phil Darrow, who I would call the real Dr. Phil. He's one of the main architects of the Math Common Core standards. And he said they traveled all over the world to our competitors, Korea, China, Finland, Singapore, all the places that you always hear about, looking for that magic silver bullet. And when he came back, he said they laughed at us when we came, because they said, whatever we've learned about public education, we learned from you in the United States. The problem is that you change every few years.
Incidentally,
and we stick to it.
Actually, it's interesting you say that, because let me read you another quote. Supposedly, our old design is part of the problem. And again, this was from a Brookings Institution report, and it says, our system focused on inputs like teacher certification, tenure, work rules, class size, social issues, social graduation rates, and dollars spent per student, and essentially neglects the key output variable, whether kids actually learn something. And it's funny, because when you say that these other nations learned from us, what is it that we've forgotten about ourselves that seems to keep holding us back?
Again, I think it's the focus on teaching and learning. And they've got their blueprint, they've got their roadmap, which are much more higher world-class standards. We have those now too, though.
And if we're talking about Common Core, and we're talking about technology, if we're talking about blended learning, if we're talking about measures of effective teaching, it's not at risk of the core mission. It's in support of the core mission. And all of a sudden, we have this tendency to make the input the output. And so our kids learning technology. That wrong question. Are they competitive in math, language arts, history, social studies, the arts, et cetera? Are they learning what they need to know when they need to know it, using the tools of the knowledge economy? Because they have to in order to be competitive. So it's a odd dynamic that occurs in our schools. When we visit the highest performing schools, which we do all the time throughout the nation, the bright spots, these are places that you'd want your kids. They are not they are not rigid. they're anything but non-creative. They're exploiting every tool, every system, every resource they have in alternative ways, in very expansive ways, in very creative ways, but they are to get the student where the student needs to be.
And they're getting it done within the traditional public education
They're getting
system.
it done today. Kids
Okay.
don't have a shelf life. We have to stop getting ready to get ready and get ready and make conditions, predicate results on today's conditions. That's not fair. It's not fair to my kids. I have a boy in Jonathan's schools right now. I'm all over him. We're all over that school. He has to get into college now. And so we're not going to wait for the school to get ready or wait for the next generation of whatever to be developed so that we can be competitive. That's not the way it works. And there are places that we can learn from all over the United States that are doing this in real time as we speak.
Now, one of the also assumptions that tends to drive the conversation is that all the innovation is happening either in private schools or in charter schools. And you're describing public schools where it is that innovation is actually taking place. There is a notion out there, gentlemen, that public schools are so hidebound by work rules and labor agreements and feather bedding that this type of achievement that you both are discussing can't take place. Here's your chance. Share the message with all of our friends right now and tell us, what is it that we're buying into that we really need to take a second look at in terms of our assumptions?
I could take you to dozens of schools in Sacramento where you see kids excited about learning. They want to come to school every day. The learning isn't real. They're engaged. Teachers are engaged. It doesn't just have to be a charter school where innovation takes place. To the contrary, but what it takes is it takes a committed staff willing to work together, willing to really engage their students and put the student more at the center of what's happening in school and in classroom. It's looking at their interests. It's designing classes and lessons. It's finding opportunities for them to be engaged, whether it's before school, during school, after school activities. But it's really understanding that educating a child isn't simply sitting in front of them and lecturing them all day long, but it's figuring out what are their interests, giving them an active role and an active voice. We've learned a lot. I think that charter schools put a sense of urgency into the conversation. They started talking about outcomes, less focused on the inputs, and it was the bottom line. You know, are students learning and how do we know? But that conversation has, I think, helped inform what else is going on. It forced a level of competition, and that's been a good thing. But again, we're talking about issues of
you're speaking of
scale.
competition. Does that mean that the natural extension of that, which are vouchers, which some would say would introduce even more competition, and you work with a business partnership, would be even better for forcing innovation?
No, I wouldn't take it there.
No,
what are you
no,
going to
we're
do
not.
with the kids who don't get a voucher? It's still going to be half or 3/4 of our kids in the United States, and that's our workforce. So that's not a solution. We have to get away from the adult silos, the adult agendas. It's not charter schools, it's not private schools, it's not Catholic schools, it's not home schools, it's not public schools. It's kids. And what do they need to know, and when do they need to know it? And once they get to college, it doesn't matter where they came from. They're in college. And they came from home schools and Sac City schools. So how are we preparing our kids? What is the teaching and learning environment? And whoever gets the kids to where they need to be the fastest and the best wins.
Incidentally, your passion comes through. Now, you started out as a teacher in South Central Los Angeles right
Yes.
before the riots.
For many years.
Okay,
yes.
so that sounds to some like combat duty. What made you sign up for that?
Yeah, gosh, it's just so far from combat duty. They asked me. I was a senior at UC Irvine, and LAUSD sent me a letter saying, we want you. Our kids need to know science. Can you start work on Monday? And it was the best thing I've ever done. It was the biggest gift I've ever been given. And those kids are absolutely capable of the highest levels of achievement.
And what, in just a few seconds, can you share with us, what do you bring from that experience to your work with major, large, big business CEOs today as you're trying to put education innovation forward?
That don't get caught up in the inputs. It's really, teaching and learning is as complex as it is actually elegant and simple. And the environment, the culture of inputs and tinkering and experimentation with the sake of outputs we don't understand or value is an inappropriate pathway to success.
Right. And Jonathan, I don't want to ask you the same question, because some would say that being a superintendent of a major metropolitan school district is about as thankless a job as being a Major League Baseball umpire. How did you come to this in our last few moments?
I go to schools, and when I visit schools and I'm in a classroom and I see kids happy, excited to be in school, that's what energizes me. I was fortunate, Scott. I came from a family that really valued education. My mother had been trained as a teacher, and I had a great educational experience that really helped me see the light and giving me the opportunities that I have today. So I think it's been out of a sense of responsibility and wanting to give back, and I see no greater opportunity and no greater equalizer than a child that has an education, can do anything they want, can be anybody they want, can dream the highest dreams and achieve those dreams if they have education. So, to me, it's this wonderful chance to give children an opportunity to prepare for themselves for opportunity, prepare for greatness, and to do something every day that they can be proud of.
And I think that we're going to give you the last word on that. Well said.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you both for coming on. Best of luck to your work.
Thank you, Scott, for having us.
And that's our show. Thanks to our guests, and thanks to you for watching. For Studio Sacramento, I'm Scott Syfax. See you next time right here on KVIE.
At Five Star Bank, community is at the heart of what we do. Every day we strive to have thoughtful solutions for our customers and help our communities prosper. Honest dialogue about the issues affecting the region is vitally important to that prosperity. We are proud to be part of the conversation and hope you'll join in.